At 91 years old, America's most controversial religious leader just vanished from his biggest event after 40 years, leaving everyone wondering if his time is finally up. Louis Eugene Walcott was born on May 11, 1933 in the Bronx, New York. His mother came from St. Kitts and his father was from Jamaica, but his parents split up before he was even born. He never met his real father. When he was just 3 years old, his mom moved him to Boston where many black families lived. At age 5, he picked up a violin and fell in love with music. This little boy who grew up without a father found comfort in playing beautiful songs. He was smart too. He went to really good schools and was so athletic that he got a college scholarship for running track. In 1953, while still in college, he married a woman named Betsy Ross. When Betsy got pregnant and had problems, Louis dropped out of school to take care of her. He needed money fast, so he became a calypso singer. He performed under stage names like The Charmer and Calypso Jean, singing Caribbean music in clubs. But in 1955, everything changed. He attended a big event held by a group called the Nation of Islam. What he heard that day completely transformed him. He joined immediately and converted to Islam along with his wife. Betsy became Khadija, and Louis became Louis X. This total change would set him on a path to becoming one of the most talked about and most feared religious leaders in American history. The Nation of Islam wasn't like regular Islam. It was specifically for black Americans, and it taught that black people were the original people of Earth and that white people were created by an evil scientist. It sounds wild, but for black Americans dealing with racism and violence in the 1950s, this message gave them pride and power. The Nation of Islam told black people they were kings and queens, not second-class citizens. They taught discipline, self-respect, and money independence. They said black people should own their own businesses and stop depending on white America for anything. Louis X quickly moved up. He became the helper to Malcolm X, who was the most famous minister in the Nation of Islam. Malcolm X was powerful and fearless. He said things that white America didn't want to hear. Louis learned everything from Malcolm X. When Malcolm X got moved to New York, Louis took over as minister in Boston. He was really good at his job. People loved listening to him speak, but then something terrible happened that would haunt Louis forever. Malcolm X started questioning the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, the supreme leader of the Nation of Islam. Malcolm found out that Elijah Muhammad, who preached strict rules, was having affairs with young women and had several children out of marriage. Malcolm felt betrayed and spoke out. The Nation of Islam saw this as betrayal. On December 4, 1964, Louis wrote something in the Nation of Islam's newspaper that still makes people uncomfortable today. He said that Malcolm shall not escape and that such a man is worthy of death. Just a few months later, on February 21, 1965, Malcolm X was shot and killed while giving a speech. 3 Nation of Islam members were found guilty of the murder. Louis always said he wasn't directly involved, but decades later, he admitted that his harsh words may have created the mood that led to Malcolm's death. That statement has followed him forever. After Malcolm X died, Louis got promoted to all of Malcolm's old jobs, including minister at the famous Harlem Mosque. He became one of the most powerful people in the Nation of Islam. Then in 1975, Elijah Muhammad died. His son Wallace took over and made huge changes. He moved the Nation of Islam toward regular mainstream Islam. He got rid of the teachings about white people being devils. He opened membership to people of all races. For Louis, this was too much. In 1978, he left and decided to rebuild the original Nation of Islam with all its old teachings. By 1981, he officially took over the name Nation of Islam and set up headquarters at Mosque Maryam in Chicago. He was now the leader, and he would hold that job for the next 40+ years, making him the longest-serving leader in the Nation of Islam's history, under Louis Farrakhan. That's the name he eventually took. The Nation of Islam grew again. He opened businesses like restaurants in Chicago. He preached money building for black people. He told black communities to clean up, stop using drugs, stop killing each other, and start building wealth. In many ways, his message helped people. Young black men joined the Nation of Islam, cleaned up their lives, stopped doing crime, and became good citizens. People respected Farrakhan for speaking truth and never backing down from white America. But then came the problems that would make him one of the most hated figures in America. In 1984, Farrakhan supported Jesse Jackson's run for president. During a radio show defending Jackson, Farrakhan called Judaism a gutter religion and called supporters of Israel criminals in the sight of God. The reaction was immediate and huge. Jewish groups across America attacked him. The media labeled him an anti-Semite, someone who hates Jewish people. The Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center branded him a hatamonger. From that moment on, Farrakhan's name became tied to controversy, hate speech, and division. But he didn't stop. Over the next 40 years, he made more and more statements that got him in trouble. He talked about Jewish power and control over Hollywood, banks, and the government. He pushed wild theories about the Holocaust and claimed that Jewish doctors injected black babies with AIDS. He said white people were devils by nature. He praised dictators and defended them against America. Every time he spoke, he seemed to say something that made headlines for all the wrong reasons. In May 2019, Facebook decided they'd had enough. They called Farrakhan dangerous and banned him from Facebook and Instagram. This was a big deal because it put him in the same group as white supremacists and violent extremists. In October 2023, Farrakhan sued the Anti-Defamation League for $4.8 billion. Yes, billion with a B. He claimed they hurt his reputation by calling him an anti-Semite. The case went to court, but in April 2024, a judge threw it out. The judge basically said that calling someone an anti-Semite based on their own public words isn't lying, it's just stating facts. Farrakhan lost. Despite all this controversy, Farrakhan did something truly amazing in 1995. He organized the Million Man March in Washington, D.C. The goal was to bring black men together to promise to improve themselves, their families, and their communities. They hoped for maybe 100,000 people. Instead, about 440,000 black men showed up. It was one of the largest gatherings in American history. Men stood shoulder to shoulder on the National Mall, promising to be better fathers, better husbands, and better community members. Even people who hated Farrakhan had to admit this was powerful. 20 years later, in 2015, he led the 20th anniversary march called Justice or Else. Though it wasn't as big, through all of this, Farrakhan's personal life remained surprisingly stable. Remember Betsy Ross, the girl he married in college? She became Khadija Farrakhan, and they're still married today. They got married on September 12, 1953, which means they've been together for over 70 years. That's almost unheard of. They had 9 children together. Their oldest son, Louis Farrakhan Jr.B., died in June 2018, which was heartbreaking for the family. But they have over 20 grandchildren and several great-grandchildren. Their grandson Mustafa Farrakhan Jr.B. even became a basketball player. In May 2025, the family celebrated Louis Farrakhan's 92nd birthday together. Surrounded by multiple generations, Khadija became known as the First Lady of the Nation of Islam. She wasn't just a wife staying in the background. In 1997, she spoke at the Million Woman March in Philadelphia. She's been by his side through everything: the rise to power, the controversies, the death threats, all of it. Their marriage is one of the longest lasting in American public life. Now let's talk about the money, because your title mentions a hidden fortune. Here's the truth. Farrakhan's net worth is about $5 million as of 2024 and 2025. Some guesses over the years have ranged from $3 million to as high as $150 million. But $5 million is the most reliable number. Is that a lot of money? Sure, for regular people it is. But for someone who's led a major religious group for 40 years, who's filled stadiums with paying audiences, and who's been one of the most famous figures in America, $5 million isn't really that much. Big church pastors have private jets worth more than his entire fortune. Farrakhan does own a 21-room mansion in Chicago that was designed by an Egyptian architect. It's nice, but it's not a hidden fortune by any means. His money comes from several places. As leader of the Nation of Islam, he gets paid a salary. He makes money from speaking, and despite being controversial, people pay to hear him speak. He's written books and sold recordings of his speeches. He opened businesses under the Nation of Islam. And remember, he was a professional singer early on, so he may still get some money from old recordings. But there's no proof of secret bank accounts or hidden real estate. The hidden fortune angle is more story than reality. What makes Farrakhan's story really interesting right now is his health and what happens next. He's 91 years old, and his body has been through a lot. In 1991, he was found to have prostate cancer. In 1999, he needed emergency surgery when the cancer came back. In 2006, he said he had a serious stomach ulcer found while he was in Cuba, and he lost 35 pounds from infections. In January 2007, he had surgery to remove his prostate and cancerous parts of his colon. The treatment for his prostate cancer caused serious internal damage. Then in October 2013, he had a heart attack and needed metal tubes put in to keep his arteries open. For a man his age who survived all of that, it's actually amazing he's still alive. But here's what just happened that has everyone talking. In February 2025, the Nation of Islam held its yearly Saviours Day conference. This is the biggest event of the year for the Nation of Islam. For over 40 years, Farrakhan has given the main speech at this event. It's his moment, but in February 2025, he was mostly missing. He didn't give the main speech for the first time since 2021. He only spoke briefly during a closed meeting and greeted people, but that was it. The conference was held at Mosque Mariam, their headquarters, after they apparently couldn't get a bigger place. The whole event had a smaller, quieter feeling than in past years. People immediately started asking questions. Is Farrakhan sick? Is he dying? Who will take over when he's gone? The Nation of Islam hasn't named a clear next leader. There's no obvious person ready to step into his shoes. Farrakhan has been the face of the Nation of Islam for so long that it's hard to imagine it without him. Some people think the group might fall apart when he dies. Others think it will continue, but become much smaller. His missing presence at the 2025 conference felt like a turning point. Like we're watching the end of an era in real time. And that leads to the big question, how do we judge Louis Farrakhan? On one hand, he said terrible things. His words about Jewish people have been recorded over and over again. He's pushed wild theories that are not just wrong but dangerous. He's defended dictators. He was banned from major social media for being dangerous. These aren't small things. These are serious problems that can't be ignored. On the other hand, he's helped thousands of black people turn their lives around. He's given black Americans a sense of pride in a country that has historically treated them badly. He organized one of the largest peaceful gatherings in American history. He's been married to the same woman for over 70 years and raised a large family. He's spoken uncomfortable truths about racism in America. He stood up to powerful people and never backed down. He's preached self-help and discipline in neighborhoods that desperately needed those messages. So which is he? A hateful extremist or a powerful leader? A divisive bigot or a truth teller? The answer is probably that he's all of these things at once. People are complicated. Farrakhan has done real good and real harm. He's helped people and hurt people. He's told truths and told lies. What's clear is his impact. For better or worse, Louis Farrakhan has been one of the most powerful African American leaders of the past 50 years. He's shaped how millions of black Americans think about race, religion, money, and politics. He's forced America to deal with uncomfortable questions about racism and justice. He's built a group that has lasted through multiple generations. He's survived cancer, heart attacks, media attacks, government investigations, and social media bans. At 91 years old, even his enemies have to admit he's a survivor. But now, as he gets close to the end of his life, his absence from public events signals that his time is running out. The Nation of Islam will have to figure out what comes next. Will they find someone who can fill his shoes? Will the group change into something different? Will it fade away? Nobody knows for sure. What we do know is that whenever Louis Farrakhan dies, his death will be major news. There will be huge funerals. There will be praise from supporters and criticism from opponents. There will be debates about his legacy that go on for years. His story reminds us that history isn't simple. The civil rights movement wasn't just Martin Luther King Jr. preaching love. It was also Malcolm X and Louis Farrakhan preaching black power and self-defense. America wants to remember the clean version of civil rights heroes, but the real story is messier and more complicated. Farrakhan is part of that messy story. He's a man who came from nothing, lost his father before birth, grew up in rough neighborhoods, found religion, found purpose, gained power, used that power in ways both good and bad, and now faces the end of his life knowing that people will argue about him forever. What's your take on Farrakhan's legacy? Hero or villain, and should controversial figures like him be given a platform or completely silenced?